Craig Reynolds, Saskatchewan Roughriders. We don't want to take up too much of your time. How's it going for you? You know what the question everyone asks? Everyone, are you ready for Christmas?
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you that.
I'm not.
Me neither.
Yeah, my wife does all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, far from it. I think like December 21st, around that time, I'll start thinking about Christmas. Yeah.
Are you ready?
If my wife says yes, then we are, but I'll get back to you on that.
If you're watching the stream, sportscage.com, first off, we want you to subscribe there. We want to get to 1,000 before Christmas. You see, when we talk to Dave Thomas, he has quite the fire going behind him. It's actually majestic. Is that the right word? All we need is like one of those scented candles.
Oh yeah,
to bring in the smell. So yeah, Craig, Christmas is here. It was a great year. We had a chance, the Harvard people, the Rider people, we all met talking about next year and this year, what went well and all that. And there were a couple of things that really stood out for me. Mm-hmm. One of them, you guys are getting creative ticket prices wise, because entertainment dollars, and it's a stretch, right? And youth tickets were up this year.
Yeah, a lot. So we sold over 5,000 family packs, which is the family of 4 under $100. So those were really well received, and those continue to grow every single year. And then this year we reintroduced 50% off youth tickets in most sections of the stadium, and those sales were up 55%. So that really resonated with our fans, and that's part of the long-term strategy. Really, is to focus in on youth, focus in on kids and families. That's how you grow the fan base, right? And that's how you get future season ticket holders.
Is the strategy fluid though? Because everything seemed to change in 2020, and I don't want to use that word, but is it a fluid strategy that changes, or is it very poignant and doesn't fluctuate much?
Well, I think you always have to look at what's going on, right? I think, some of the affordability challenges and those types of things have kind of come as interest rates rose and inflation has gone, a little bit bonkers here. So you have to adjust with those things. But I think coming out of the pandemic, that's when we really focused in on this youth strategy, thinking about future fans, and getting future season ticket holders. And how do you do that? You got to get kids involved, right? You got to get kids attached to the brand, kids attached to players. And you see it in our community work too. Our community work is really focused around youth, getting our players into schools, because our players are our best ambassadors. When you get players in front of kids, and not only are they getting in front of kids and hopefully building fandom, but they're there, like when they're talking about mental health, which is one of our big school programs, and you get a professional athlete up there talking about how he struggles sometimes with his mental health, like that really resonates with kids and can make a pretty big impact.
The obsidian green jerseys, when they came out, if there's always going to be the people that complain just about everything, right? And it's like, these are sharp, the helmets are sharp, the jersey. Sales on that just exceeded the expectations by quite a bit, from what I understand.
By quite a bit, yeah. I think we all felt, pretty good, but you're right, Barney. Like, you never know, right? Like, we had done some focus group testing with some fans, and we had good response. We had shown some of our players, and they were like, "Those are fire." Speaking of fire, like Dave's big fire back there. They were talking in the same way. It was fire, and so we felt pretty good about that, but you never know, right, until you launch something. But right away, it just went really, really well. And so I think, we had certain projections, but every single week and month, and and now as we get into the end of the year, we just vastly exceeded that. So we saw merchandise sales we haven't seen in a long time.
Was on that? I'm wondering, because we had Trevor Harris on earlier this week. I think earlier this week. Everything's just blending together in December, and it was like, I haven't seen that hoodie before.
Yeah. And
then you see a guy with a hat, or a girl, and it's like, I haven't seen that hat before. Are they like making things on the fly almost?
Yeah, nice. we had to respond quickly, because the demand. You plan for a certain amount of demand, and again, we thought our fans would like this. We really did, but we didn't think our fans would respond the way they did and so quickly. So yeah, we've had to really pivot and get as much obsidian in as possible. And we're leaning into it quite a bit in Christmas. And I'm not surprised Trevor was wearing the obsidian. That's the one thing I noticed. And Dave, you travel the team too. Like the number of guys on planes, those types of things that were wearing the obsidian stuff, like the players really, really liked it. And, obviously we wore it for the home playoff game, and that was really fan driven. But oh my God, I was getting lobbied from the players around. We're wearing the alts, aren't we? We're wearing the alts. Like, they really like them.
It was funny. I was afforded the opportunity to go Grant Road School, earlier this week, and the number of kids that are wearing Obsidian was through the roof. And my question was going to be, because Mark Habeck was kind enough to give me some time just to take me through the entire design of that jersey. And there's so many intricate details that I couldn't pick them out. But having said that, was there ever a moment where, like, are we sure we want to do this, especially right before the launch or anything? Because I can only imagine the emotions with that much time and energy dedicated to it.
Yeah, so I think Mark probably told you it was 6 years. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't moments where we said, I don't know, guys, like, is this what we want to do? Because it went through several iterations. And when you're dealing with something from a design perspective, and Mark's the expert here, but I'll comment briefly. When you deal with 6 years, like, actual styles change. So the first version of it, the logo we landed on pretty quickly with a designer, and he's a world-class designer. And he came to Saskatchewan to learn about the province, and so he really wanted to understand what the Riders were all about, what the province was all about, incorporate that. So you see the 13 wheat chiefs on there for the 13th man. There's a lot of intricacies there. But anyways, on the design, the first iteration of the uniform, we all sat, and Jeremy was there, and our executive was there, and we all sat in the room, and we're like, no, this isn't it. Like, we weren't comfortable. And so then we started talking about, are we moving forward like this, or do we need to go back to the drawing board? And then we started to just strip it down, and we just more back to basics. And once we got to that look, and we had the emerald popping, and we had the obsidian green, the dark green. And that was the other thing. We had to get the obsidian right. And the first couple of versions, it just wasn't dark enough. And we sort of kept working with New Arrow. No, we needed darker. We needed almost black, but it needs to be green. And they finally got us a version, and Mark will probably tell you the story where, he got it, he runs into the office, he's like, I think we got it. And when you look at that, and you're like, yeah, that's the dark green we needed.
The 13, I'm trying to remember who I just mentioned that to, the 13 wheat chiefs. And someone was like, I had no idea. It was like somebody prominent, and then I was like, yeah, no, that's blended in. And then I think, is it Chris Chapak?
Yeah, Chapak.
From Red Pheasant Cree Nation. Mm-hmm. Like, that Indigenous logo popped, and where I really saw was on the white hoodie that Wes Cates was wearing underneath the blazer. And I was like, that is a look.
Yeah. Well, Wes is a sharp-dressed guy. Let's be honest here. But no, that was, that Chris, what a talented artist he was. Again, they submit, we asked for, artists to submit. He submitted with really, his own inspiration. There was no guidance other than, here's our original S, and you work with it. And when we all looked at that, we're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And it was outstanding. And that was another one that quickly sold out. We were sold out within a week.
It was interesting to me because I felt really old at a point on Wednesday, rewinding the clock a decade, 10 years. And it was 10 years ago that I was in Foam Lake, your hometown, Combine Lotto, and I'm there. And again, we're raising funds for the community. And I just remember there was a murmur that was going on, and it was like, do you know that's Craig Reynolds' mom that's answering the phone?
I was going to say, was my mom working it? She's always working that.
Dad was at the golf course.
No comment. All I'm saying is that I'm like, this is a really cool buzz, because you were coming in then as the CEO and president of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Does it seem like 10 years? It is 10 years.
Yeah, right? You know what? I think now I think about it, it was December 16th. That I found out that I was going to be named to the president of the Riders. So it is coming up on 10 years.
Yeah, so it was 2014. Would have been June that year.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel like 10 years. I think when you have a pandemic in there, you kind of like, I felt like you lost 2 years. So it probably feels more like 7 or 8. But yeah, it's been a decade since that time, I guess. Yeah.
We have the senior hockey report coming up later. Foam Lake Flyers we're number 1.
Were they? Oh,
they're still undefeated. So we'll see at 5:00 hour if they are. How do you explain to the SportsCage listeners quickly what a net promoter score is?
Goodness, yeah.
Because in that meeting, it was actually very informative and quite amazing where the Riders are ranking on this net promoter score.
Yeah. So NPS, Net Promoter Score, is a score that based on essentially a set of questions and survey results, where you can be on a range from -100, which means if you're in the minuses, means you have detractors. So people are actually speaking negatively about the experience or your brand, all the way up to +100, where they're promoters. So they're actually speaking positively about your brand and promoting your brand. And so scores below 0, obviously you don't want. They're not terrible, but you don't want to be high minuses. And when you're in the pluses, it's good. So a 30 to 50 plus score is really good, because you're never going to have everybody promoting you all the time. So our average game day this year was 58, which is really high. Like, you'd say 58 out of 100 isn't that high, but 58 on a scale of -100 to +100 is very, very high. And so yeah, 30 to 50 is generally considered like really, really strong. And so we were at 58. So lots of work to do. We look at game day every year, but what it tells us is on average, people coming to the games are really enjoying themselves, and we break it down by age group as well, which is quite interesting, because you get to see the net promoter score by age group. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you want to guess, but the age group that's the highest net promoter score, like it was in the high 70s, was the 20 and unders.
Really?
So yeah, the young folks, I don't know if they're all Peel Country or what, but they just were loving the experience.
And this is something that like NFL teams and I forget who was talking about it at the meeting, and they were saying, well, there's teams in the NFL that are on the negative side.
Yeah, there are. There's always sports teams, and the reality is when you have a tough season or one thing like there was a game last year where we tough game, tough loss, we dipped into the negatives, and so that happens. But this year, and wins and losses impacted a lot. Like we actually break it down between wins and losses, and the average when you win is higher than when you lose. But so it's influenced by that. But yeah, it's a good measure of where you're at.
So if you were to look back at the 2024 season and where you're at, what made you smile the most?
Well, I think hosting a home playoff game, right? I think that's one thing that did. I think, we hadn't hosted a home playoff game since 2021. That's a measure of success. That's a goal of the organization, only because it sets you up to have a chance to play in the Grey Cup, right? Hosting a home playoff game. Obviously, you want the West Final, but hosting a playoff game gives you an advantage. So to have to see the crowd there and the electric atmosphere that was there, and then winning that home game, that certainly made me smile. And then there's always the community work too. Like this year, I think we set an all-time record with a number of appearances. Those types of things, bring a huge smile on my face, because the players and our organization are giving back to the fans who give us so much.
Let's take a quick break. You can stick around.
Yeah,
we got Craig Reynolds here in studio. We'll take a quick break if you're watching the stream. SportsCage.com, and as always, we are on the home of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 620 CKRM. It's all new Sports Cage on Friday for Nelson Holmes. Back in the studio, Dave Thomas is here, and Craig Reynolds from the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We are going to get him to vote on the Sports Cage Ultimate Christmas Song bracket. We got Feliz Navidad, our international entry today.
Okay.
Jose Feliciano fans. And I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas. And then we have Let It Be Christmas, Alan Jackson. You spun that in your country music days.
Yes, I did.
Lot. Against Step Into Christmas, Elton John. It's a tough one there. So you can go into Twitter and vote, Sports Cage, or 936-6262. Capital Ford Lincoln text line, Saskatchewan, #1 Ford retailer. Back to you. So we talked to, we have to ask you, what's the one thing I want to ask, that kind of keeps you up at night that you haven't achieved yet for you, that's, making you toss and turn a bit?
It's getting over the hump in the West Final. 3 of the last 5 years we've been in the West Final. Like when you take a step back, right? We had those 2 tough years. You kind of forget that 19 we had the West Final at home. 21 we were in the West Final in Winnipeg. And we haven't gone over that hump yet. So, and I know that's Jeremy's thing that keeps him up at night too, and now Corey, and I know you guys talked to Trevor about it too. So that's, from an organizational perspective, that's where the focus is what do we need to do this offseason to allow us to just get over that hump and be able to, win that West Final.
The one thing I realized this year is, as fans, we're all very passionate, right? Like we live and breathe wins and losses, right? But I never really fully understood how much more invested the players were, because I thought there was no one that could be more invested than the fans. But Darian Durant, Luke Mullender, Mike McCullough, the alumni that have come out, and they were celebrating 2013 in part this year with our Dinner with Doubles and some other events. But hearing them talk about the games that got away and being able to see it firsthand, Like, that's an incredible amount of care that these athletes have.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think it's a couple things. It's the amount of work and prep they put in for the week. Like, you know, and I'm the same way. You know, it affects me deeply, but I think about that a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I'm, you know, especially home games, you're putting some time in, but think about that. Every waking minute for the entire week, you're reviewing film, you're on the field, you're taking care of your body, you're doing all these things to win that game, and then, you know, the ball bounces the wrong way, or there's a fumble, or something happens and you lose the game. Like, just think of how devastating that is. So I think that's, you know, that's where it is. And you often hear athletes sort of saying, you know, they fixate on the losses more than the wins.
Yeah.
Like, they'll remember the losses forever, and the wins are almost like relief, right? And so it's just because they put so much time and effort into it. It's if people sort of saw how much effort they put in. I know we talk about it a lot, but you got to see it, and I get to see it a lot too. Like, man, they put in a ton of effort.
One of the things that we talked about a lot when it came out on the SportsCage was the $5 beer, right? Like that, and we talked about the ticket sales and the demographic and all that coming in. Like, that must have went over really well as well.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good, and I think you saw lineups and it was good. But it was a really good flow and a really good system this year. And yeah, like, you know, sometimes I'd watch. You know, we watch the entry gates to make sure everything's flowing perfectly, and you would see a lot of times they immediately into the stadium and then boom, right to the $5 beer, you know, to get a couple $5 beers and then go to the stadium. And that's what it's about, right? Come early, have a good time, have the $5 beers. It's available in the party in the park
that's where
the whole time, like 3 hours. You can just tailgate there, right?
That's where Mrs. S saw it. We were walking into the game and she goes, I think that's an old sign. And I'm like, no, it's going on. Party it's a great idea. Yeah. And then also this year, 50-50 is like number one in the league.
Yeah, we actually set the all-time record. Labor Day was 1.28 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was, you know, somebody in Saskatoon won it. It was a great story. The person, I don't know if we disclosed who it was, but the person, it was from Saskatoon. It was a great story. Like, somebody that won it, you're just like, that's fabulous. That's that's life-changing money, like $600 and some $1,000. And it just went crazy. Like, that's big jackpots with 50-50. Once it gets going, then people rebuy, and you know, there's just a lot of energy around it, and that's what we saw.
I don't know what it is with 50-50 in Saskatchewan, but we just love them. And the best part is that you look at the distribution of the funds through the Saskatchewan Roughrider Foundation. And like I said, I've been fortunate enough just to see some of the work. Like Jorgen Hughes and Charbel de Beer, they're up north in Saskatchewan right now, thanks to the support of those 50-50s.
Yeah, it all goes back to amateur football. And like this year, it'll be the, you know, I don't want to steal Cindy from the Foundation's thunder, but it will be the single biggest amount ever giving back to amateur football this year because of the 50-50, because of the fans, right? Buying the 50-50. But it all goes back to amateur football, supporting, you know, Football Sask, all the elite programs, you know, the female tackle programs, the Northern South Football League, where we're able to bring in 200 kids from the Northern South Football League, and they got time in front of Joe and Alberta Wachi and just had, you know, and then there was out, you know, football camp. So just really great experiences for people and really just helps grow the game of football.
And you talk about the 50-50s in Sasky are huge, just like the lotteries, like the Foam Lake lottery, right? The Leroy lottery, all that. I think the one thing too, like with the youth that I would like to see, and maybe this is selfishly, and you work, you know, closely with the Football Sask guys in the same building as well, is that youth flag football league that we have here in Regina, your kids play, is so huge. Huge. You know, to get the Riders and then really get the CFL more back into there.
Yeah, no, flag football is a big strategy at the league level. Okay. So, you know, there's Olympic participation now coming here pretty quick. So, they're looking at something pretty cool there, and we certainly sponsor that program. One of the things I'd like to see is us getting our players out to more of the flag football events. Sometimes just timing with training camp, those types of things. But we've done that in the past, and it's been really awesome when we were able to do that. So hopefully next year we can do a little bit more of that and get more involved.
Well, I don't know if you can give it away or if there's anything to give away, but the NFL right now is looking at Los Angeles and that flag football Olympic venue, and they're talking about, well, you know, maybe you could have Patrick Mahomes out there throwing a football. Would there be an opportunity? I know it would be in season, I would suggest, for the CFL, though.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about at the league level is how do we work with Football Canada, of course, but how do we look at that opportunity is what I'd say.
Yeah, that's and you know what? They do it with the other sports. Like, you know, hockey
yeah.
is going back to Italy with the PA and all that. So do you work closely with the other teams? Do you collaborate?
Yeah.
Same positions with you and
Yep.
Get that kind of going?
Yeah. The reality is there's only 8 other teams, right?
Yeah.
So those are your your peers in some respects. And yeah, we talk lots. There's not a day that goes by where I don't communicate to at least one of my counterparts across the league on some issue. So I find it's a really collaborative bunch. Honestly, everybody wants to just grow the league, grow the league's revenues, grow attendance, grow everything, right? And so we share a lot, because you can learn a lot from everybody. Like, teams can learn from us, and we can learn from other teams too. So every team does things a little bit slightly different, and sometimes something that'll work in one market won't work in another market, but sometimes something that works in a market will work in our market or in every market. So you want to lean on those.
Couple of tough ones here, and you can tell me to go. People at lunch today were asking, when are we expecting schedule release, and when do you think we're going to hear a new commissioner name?
Yeah, so schedule release is ongoing. I think the challenge with our schedule is stadium availabilities. So sometimes those will either change.
Is Taylor Swift coming back?
Yeah, no, not that I hear. But yeah, so they'll either change or for the good, and then they'll change the schedule to try to get a different, more optimal schedule, or for the bad, where there's like some sort of stadium that was stadium availability that's no longer available.
Oh, okay.
So they got to change the schedule. So, and the challenge is like, the cadence of the TV, when we play our games, like when you change one game, sometimes it resulted in a totally new schedule, other than the Labor Day game and those types of things. So it's in progress, I would say.
That's a good look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Because people think it's just easy as putting out your kids' baseball schedule.
No, it's definitely not. And you got to look at like the length of time and turnarounds. And there's a lot of constraints too. And then every team has their own preferences in terms of what days and times they'd like to play. And so you got to make sure that you're respecting that. Not everybody can have everything, but I always joke that it's not a good schedule unless everybody's at least upset about a few things, right? Because then you got a good schedule, because no one team has everything they want, because it's almost impossible in our league. So that's the schedule. On the commissioner, yeah, they're just sort of starting the process, I would say. Okay. Randy's indicated he's going to stay on till they find the right person, and so they just sort of, Christmas time, it might slow a little bit here, but they're just kind of getting that process rolling.
When it comes to a commissioner, obviously every time you make a decision, you're going to upset 50% of the people, and 50% of the people are going to be somewhat satisfied. How difficult is it then if, again, schedule collaboration, right? There's a series of compromises you have to make. How difficult is it to come to an agreement as far as this is the right plan and the right way to proceed with this individual moving forward?
Yeah, well, it can be challenging. It certainly can be challenging, but I think the good thing about the CFL and the plan, that, as I understand it, is everybody's going to have involvement. So all the owners, all the lead governors will have an opportunity to participate in the process, and I think that's how you get to consensus, is give everybody a voice. They'll have some subcommittees, to vet candidates, but once they get down to the number of candidates they're comfortable with, everybody's going to have an opportunity to weigh in.
Capital Ford Lincoln text line. We've gotten a few here. This one, Rylan is messaging. I think he's asking, ask them why they got rid of cash. I suspect in stadium he's talking about.
Yeah, it's not exclusively cashless, right? So, okay. Like 50/50s, you can pay for cash. So I think there's some POSs that aren't, but it's not. The stadium's not entirely cashless.
Yeah.
But I think there are some concession stands which are cashless. So it's not across the board, and a lot of it's just handling money and actually ease and speed of transaction. So it's just if you're not having to give change, and you're just, nowadays we tap, we're just trying to get as many people through as quickly, and you don't have long lineups and those types of things.
I don't think you go to many stadiums south now.
Most in the US are cashless. Yeah.
Las Vegas, I remember I was trying to pay for cash at the Golden Knights game, and they looked at me like I was from another planet.
Yeah, like for example, the Vancouver Convention Center where the Grey Cup was, that was cashless. Like you could not pay for cash for anything.
2024.
Yeah.
The other thing people always, and maybe I look behind the curtain to explain to the listeners, people are saying, well, how come the prices? The prices are so high, and how prices are set amongst the stadium?
Yeah,
vendors.
so it's again, we got a lot of people involved in that. So you got Real, who are the operators of the stadium, the city's the owners of the stadium, and then it's subcontracted to a concessionaire. So really, it's kind of like 4 groups getting together and trying to determine what the best price is. So it's and the reality is costs have risen up a ton, and we've been really adamant around no, we can't, like, just because it's gone up 12%, we can't raise it by 12%. That's crazy. We're gonna have to take less margin on some things. So it's just it's a collaborative process, but you got a lot of people that are involved.
$5 for a head of lettuce, right? Like, because people are always messaging that in. It's like, okay, Craig Reynolds doesn't sit down at his kitchen table and go, okay, we're gonna charge this for pizza. It's like, it's not really how it works.
No, yeah. I would be very bad at doing that.
It's the holiday season. If we could get the Saskatchewan Roughriders one gift to put under the tree or Gainer's lair, or wherever you want to put it.
I don't know if Gainer has a lair, does he? Maybe he does.
The tavern and Park Bag.
Park Bag. What would the Saskatchewan Roughriders want for Christmas?
Oh, I think you got to know the answer. I think it's that shiny Grey Cup trophy. I think
in Winnipeg.
In Winnipeg. Yeah, it's 2013. The last time we won, and it's I think I'm excited about the future. There's incredible positive momentum, but seasons are long and a lot of things have to go your way. But that would be the answer for sure. And
before we let you go, we got Feliz Navidad up against I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas.
Yeah, it's got to be Feliz Navidad.
And then Let It Be Christmas by Alan Jackson against Step Into Christmas from Elton John.
See, this is bad. I don't think I know. I thought I knew all the Christmas songs. I don't think I know either of those two. I think I'd go with Alan Jackson.
Yeah,
I think I'd go with Alan Jackson there.
Thanks so much for doing this and coming in today, and thanks for everything that you've done for us this year. And I know it's not an easy job, and everyone thinks it is. And it keeps you up at night, right? We want to win.
Yeah, absolutely, we want to win. But no, thank you guys. This has been just an outstanding year. Thanks, Dave, for everything you brought to the broadcast. It's been so impressive to watch your work. And as I mentioned to you, I got a chance to listen to you for one of the games, and I was just thoroughly impressed. But so yeah, Merry Christmas to you guys. Merry Christmas to the Rider Nation too. I just want to thank the fans for just an outstanding year. They brought the energy and excitement all year, and good things are ahead in 25, I feel.
That's right. It is Craig Reynolds joining us here live on the SportsCage. We'll take a quick break. You're watching the stream, sportscage.com, and on the home of the Riders, 620 CKRM.